With NATO building up its troop presence on its eastern flank, Russia's foreign ministry has said that Moscow will respond proportionately. That's according to Russian news agency Interfax. Elsewhere, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has addressed the Shangri-La Security Summit in Singapore, where he spoke of the global effects of Russia's invasion. In his speech, Zelenskyy called on the world to uphold international law in the face of Russian imperialism and warned of the threat that Russia poses to global peace.
Russian propaganda is assiduous in spreading in many countries the disinformation campaign that Russia's war against Ukraine is ostensibly something about NATO, about the role of the United States, about the intention of the West to somehow advance in Europe. But in reality, Russia's war against Ukraine is not only about Europe. It is about globally important things. Russian leadership strives to discard all the achievements of the historical development of humankind, particularly the system of international law, which we have today. And it wants to come back to the life of the 19th century, or even before that, when it was impossible to ensure the harmonious development and well-being for billions of people.
Meanwhile, the fierce fighting in Ukraine's east and south continues. Russia's firepower in Ukraine's Donbas region is estimated to be at least 10 times greater than Ukraine's, and Zelenskyy says his troops won't be able to hold back Putin's forces much longer without an increased supply of Western weapons. As battles rage on, some 300 civilians from Donbas were taken to safer parts of the country on a special evacuation train.
A smile to break the tension. These civilians in Donetsk are fleeing as the shelling draws closer. War is a reality many people here know too well. They started shelling, and then it intensified. We have been in the war for 8 years already. We live on the front line now. The kids are worried all the time. They're afraid to sleep at night. So we decided to take them out of here, away from the shelling. Key cities in Donbas are under steady attack as Ukrainian and Russian forces fight for every street. In his nightly address, Ukraine's president stressed just how crucial these battles are for Ukraine's future.
Battles continue. It's precisely now, in these very hard battles, that it is decided when the after will come. It is decided on which particular defense lines we will permanently derail the occupiers' plans. And everyone has to remind societies and other countries of these ongoing battles and of the support that is required now.
Zelenskyy said their success depends on weapons deliveries from the West. Kyiv estimates that Russia has between 10 to 15 times as much artillery equipment. Shells are being rationed by soldiers on the front lines as Ukraine waits for more weapons.
DW correspondent Jan Philip Schultz is in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Good morning, Jan. What's the situation at the moment on Ukraine's front lines?
Fierce battle continue in the Donbas region, especially in the area around Zaporizhzhia, where around Severodonetsk, where Russia really throws in all its firepower. Observers say Russia is making slow but steady gains there, but there's also new intense fighting on more centrally located and more southern front lines at the moment, especially in Zaporizhzhia and in Kherson, but also in the region around Mykolaiv. So there are tense battles at the moment on many front lines, and another interesting development is that Russians seem to try to take over more and more governmental structures in the occupied territories, obviously increasingly trying to install their own structures there.
Remind us again why Russia's military capacity dwarfs Ukraine's, even though Ukraine's Western allies have repeatedly promised arms and support.
Yes, Ukraine's calls regarding the delivery of more weapons from the West is really growing more and more desperate every day. The governor in the Mykolaiv region said that they are simply running out of ammunition, but it's not only a problem of ammunition, of course, it's also a problem of more heavy weapons and more modern artillery. Everybody expected that the process of those deliveries of more weapons would take weeks. It's a difficult process logistically and regarding the training for those weapon systems, but it seems as if the Ukrainians are really slowly losing their understanding why it's taking so long.
The war in Ukraine has helped create a global food crisis, of course. You spoke with the German agriculture minister who has been visiting Kyiv. What did he tell you about the way out of the grain crisis?
Yes, during the trip, the minister made it very clear that he believes that Russia is using starvation as a weapon at the moment. He said that he understands that Ukraine can't take Putin's word that the Russians won't attack the harbors because Putin said that Ukraine should go ahead and demine the areas around the ports, but the minister said, of course, Ukraine needs more guarantees for that. So at the moment, the only realistic solution seems to be to find more alternative routes to export the grain via train tracks. Let's listen into what the minister told me.
Alternative routes have become surprisingly well established, but they are, of course, much more expensive than shipments across the Black Sea. Transport on the Danube, on trucks or by rail are increasing, and we want to increase them further still with the help of the European Union. But prices are higher and the export routes longer. It's clear that to fight hunger around the world and ensure that Ukraine can be self-sufficient, the war has to end. That's why we have to support Ukraine.
And the minister also added that he understands very well that the Ukrainian side is urgently demanding more heavy weapons from the West.
That's DW correspondent Jan Philip Schultz in Kyiv. Many thanks, Jan.